Bullying. We all have a basic understanding of what it is. According to the National Center Against Bullying, it is defined as an individual or group of people with more power repeatedly and intentionally cause hurt or harm to another person or group of people who feel helpless to respond. Bullying can continue over time and will probably continue if no action is taken. The main factors in this definition are that it causes harm, it can happen over time, it will probably continue, and it is intentional. Now, this is nothing new. Bullying has always been around, but it is no longer something as simple as kids picking on each other on the playground. It has become so much more than that, and now more than ever, something has to be done about it. So what makes now different? Why has it grown into such an issue? There is one simple answer to all of this, and that is technology. We have advanced in technology at rapid rates. We are able to do things that we could have never imagined doing just a few years ago. This can be very positive for our society, but sometimes it can have some negative impacts. This has caused the creation of the term cyberbullying. This is a relatively new term, but it has become very relevant. In a study done by the American Collegiate Testing Program of over 5,500 students, ages 12 through 18, so about high school age, 71% of students reported being a victim of some kind of cyberbullying situation at least once or twice a year. 71%. That is over half of our high school students that are having to cope with something like this at such a young age. With it happening so often, we need to ask ourselves what causes cyberbullying. Why is this occurring? The majority of situations start with some sort of power imbalance. Now, that can be anything from gender, race, religion, social class, political view, almost anything that someone sees as making you different. It used to be that power imbalance was just body structure, what student was taller or bigger than the other so that they could pick on the other kids. But the ability for bullies to hide behind screens has changed that and opened the world to a bunch of power imbalances that these bullies are taking advantage of. And the media has made this 10 times worse. A documentary called Misrepresentation explains the unrealistic body image standards that women have to live up to every day. Whether that be from celebrities, actors, actresses, models, the front page of magazines, TV shows, we all see this ideal woman, what they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to look like, how they're supposed to act. And in reality, that's completely unreachable. A similar documentary called The Mask You Live In shows that men are not left out in this. A lot of times when people think of body image standards, they only think of women, but men actually have similar situations that they have to go through as well. Men are expected to be big and tough and masculine, and that is a body image standard. They're expected to not show any emotion. This can be very dangerous because just because society thinks that they're not supposed to show the emotion doesn't mean that they don't have it. The Mask You Live In talks a lot about the phrase man card. And a lot of times in society it's used as a joke. People say things like, your man card has been revoked, or you've lost your man card, showing that whatever actions they're referring to is not acceptable simply because they are male. This can be very hurtful to a lot of men, especially when they're just trying to express themselves and who they are as a person. And society uses phrases like this that they think is funny and they think are a joke to shame those actions. It also mentions how men have created a society where they think that discriminating against women and sexualizing women is cool, and this can be very dangerous because that in itself is bullying. Images being able to be shared instantaneously makes this 10 times worse. It gives the opportunity for people to compare pictures and to point out these body image standards that aren't being met. So what are the consequences of cyberbullying? With it happening so much, we need to know what is likely going to happen and what is happening. Victims feel alone and they feel like they have no one to turn to. It affects a lot of students in school in many different ways. They cannot show up to school, and sometimes they even drop out of school. if they're going, they won't be able to focus, and it can affect their grades. They might not be bullied actually in the school setting, but the people who are bullying them attend their school and they have to face them every day, and this can be very difficult for many students. In extreme situations, some actually have to change school locations, and this in itself can be very hard because no matter what age you are, whether it's middle school, high school, it's hard to start over in a new place. And these students are going to be afraid that the same thing is going to happen at the new school, and so they're worried about what's going to happen there and if the same things occur or if it will really be different. In extreme situations, it can even lead to suicide. When I was in high school, I had a friend, and his name was Brock. He was one of the happiest people you will ever meet. There was always a smile on his face. He was a neighborhood kid, so we all grew up together. We would play outside after school, and we would see each other around the neighborhood. We never really saw each other in school. We had very different classes, and I never really crossed paths with him there, but all of the neighborhood kids would still see him outside of school and after school. Apparently, at school, he was being extremely bullied. He was brilliant. He loved learning, and he was fascinated by that. And in high school, that was not cool. People didn't see his potential. They didn't see all the things that he was capable of. They looked at him as, I don't want to use the term nerd, but they looked at him as, in their eyes, he was a nerd, and it wasn't good to love learning. A lot of people didn't realize what was going on. He kept a lot of it inside and didn't share with anyone what was happening at school and how he felt about it. Even his parents had no idea what was happening while he was away at school, because he would come home and act like everything was okay and be his happy-go-lucky self. And one day he decided that it was too much for him to handle, and he took his life. It shouldn't have to be like that. After he took his life, it was very heartbreaking for a lot of us, but for the students at school who had been bullying him, it was a wake-up call. It shouldn't take someone committing suicide to be a wake-up call. How many students have to take their lives before we realize that this is a real problem? So what does it feel like to be cyberbullied? I interviewed another student who actually attends UMKC. She is a practicing Muslim. She came over from another country while her parents stayed there. She came here to attend school. When she first got here, it was very difficult because she got a lot of negative comments from people based on her religion. And she was very lucky. She had a really great support system and was able to turn it around in a positive way. She decided that she needed to educate people on what her religion meant to her, what her religion meant, and show them that it really wasn't that different than anything they had ever experienced before, and it really was very similar to what they believed and what they did. But not everyone is this fortunate. Not everyone is able to have this support system and this ability to turn it around in a positive aspect, and that's why things need to be done about it. The book Cyberbullying: Causes, Consequences, and Coping Strategies explains how this leads to depression in the majority of situations. So the majority of students that are having to go through this don't know how to cope with it, and they end up being depressed, and then these things, it's a cycle. It's a very vicious cycle. An article from the Journal of Adolescence show how this depression is directly related to thoughts of suicide. So what does this mean for us? What do we need to do? Society recognizes this as an issue. It's all over headlines, it's in the media, it's in TV shows. We are recognizing that this is a problem. But what do we need to do? Schools have a zero tolerance policy, and helplines the last few years have started to pop up everywhere. But this is not enough. Now that this issue has been recognized, it is up to us. We need to start stopping it rather than coping with it. A lot of the methods that we have are how to cope with it, whether that be the helplines or the counseling or how to cope with cyberbullying, but we need to work on how to prevent it from the very beginning. We must teach our children better. It is up to us as a generation to teach the younger ones, whether that be siblings, children later on, that this is not okay and it cannot continue. It's up to teachers, lawmakers, police officers, parents, and even students to do so. It can no longer be ignored. Everyone knows that this is a problem, but no one wants to take any action. It is never okay in any situation for someone to be bullied. We cannot keep looking at this as the norm. We have to realize that there is a problem. Technology can be a good thing, but it's only as good as we make it.